in the original Hebrew or Greek could mean. And it's almost like it should have said, it should have done this, it should have been. What it really means is that, by the way, I don't know if I can pull this up. I took little pictures on my phone. Somebody sent me the Jimmy Swaggart Expositor's Bible. And it's just one they had laying around, and so they sent it to me, and they said, no, we don't want it back. And I opened it up the other day and started looking at it, and I'm just going, boy, did they mess this up. I go to certain places to look and see what they did. One of them was Daniel chapter 3, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. That's where I went. And in the King James, it correctly says the Son of God. The Son of God. And then Swaggart, one of the Swaggarts, put in parentheses, it should have been, and I saw that. You know what I did? I just started thumbing through the Bible. And, you know, once your eyes get used to seeing something, you can spot it. Because I note that in the Swaggart Expository Bible, they say it the same way every time. It should have been translated, it should have been translated, it should have been translated, should have been translated, should have been translated. That's what you'll see. And so I saw on there, it said, it should have been translated, a Son of God. A. Not the. A. Son of God. So now we're back to, that could have been one of the angels in the fiery furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but it doesn't have to be Jesus now. It doesn't have to be. Nebuchadnezzar correctly identified the one who he was going to stand before in judgment one day. He knew who that was in there. He said, he is the Son of God. And Swaggart comes along and says, no, it should have been translated this. It should have been. And so I just kind of thumbed through there, and I found just numerous places where it said it should have been translated this, should have been translated that, should have been. And basically what Swaggart is telling you is that those stupid King James translators didn't know what they were. 54 of them together could not screw in a light bulb correctly. It should have been better screwed this way. It should have been turned this way first. That's what he's saying in there. When you go through this thing and you read the number of times where Swaggart puts in there, should have been translated this, he's telling you that 54 of these guys were not even smart enough to get up out of bed. Somebody had to do it for them. Now he is going to come along as a private interpreter and tell you that practically everything that they said that you have relied on all your life. I mean, my goodness, we grew up in our Sunday school classes thinking that that was Jesus in the fiery furnace. We're counting on that. We're depending on that. And Swaggart comes along with a private interpretation, which is not allowed in the Scripture, and puts it in there that says these guys absolutely didn't know what they were talking about, and that was not the Son of God in that. It was a Son of God in there. And it's not going to be a falling away either. It should have been translated this, should have been translated that. And it just, I don't know, it bothers me. And Joyce likes to use that Amplified Bible, which pretty much does the same thing. And if you ever read her stuff, you'll see that her ideologies and her doctrines and her way of thinking comes as a direct result, not of what the King James Bible says, but what the Amplified or some other translation, what they say in opposition to the King James. Okay? And you just pick out whichever translation you want to. This is why the churches now, they'll have all these different translations. Do you know why? Because pastors are not writing sermons based upon the Bible. They're writing Bibles to fit the sermons. That's what they're doing. And when they write up this sermon, Jimmy Baker told the truth. Jimmy Baker wrote in one of his books after he came out of prison, he said, I'll tell you how it's done. He said, this is what we did when we were doing the PTL club. He said, we just had it in our mind how we were going to get $3 or $4 million out of the people watching that day. And he said, so we would write up a little sermon that I was going to teach and preach on there. Then we went and found verses that we thought matched what we were writing. But we didn't read the Bible to get the sermons. We used the sermons and we used the Bible to condone what it was we were preaching. He told the truth on how they did it. And so you get all the preaching. This is why nobody can carry a Bible. And if you do, it stinks to be you, because we're not going to just stick with one translation. So leave it at home. And then you start leaving the Bible at home, people. You leave it at home. And then we're going to tell you that out of 45 different English translations of the Bible, we have picked the verses that match what we want to tell you. And that is not preaching the Word of God. It's not. And if you're going to, I'm going to tell you something. If you're going to a church right now that does not believe the Bible should write the sermons, but they got all those different translations up there on the screen, you get out of that thing. You get out of that. You quit paying tithes to them. The fact that that's the only reason why they want you there is to support them financially. That's the only reason they got you there. They're going to tell you what you hear. You are going to be guilty of being some of these people the Bible talked about in the last days, people having itching ears. And you're going to heap up to yourselves teachers that will tell you what you want to hear, because they're not going to get it from the Bible. They're going to get it out of their own corrupt, wicked heart, or somebody else's wicked heart, because they probably downloaded the sermon off the internet. Anyway, Joyce, what translation of the Bible are you condemning the anti-gay bill, Joyce? Let's see here. Short, sharp. I've got some other things I want to deal with today. Let me get to that. Then I'll see if I got time for this stuff. Let's see here. Where is it? People have been sending me some, speaking of these churches, okay? This absolutely fit right in with the Watchman broadcast the last two weeks on the North and the secret of the United Nations. This is one of our friends in New Zealand sent me this graphic here. It told me to go to that website. This is the Invercargill. Now, I'm probably just messing that all up, ain't I? Invercargill Christian Center. See, they even spelled the word center wrong, didn't they, Jill? They spelled the word center wrong. The R should be at the end, not in the middle. Anyway, this is the Invercargill Christian Center, and it's their evolution. Now, I'm going to tell you this, okay? Any church that you're at that is using evolution as a theme, get out. Because there is no such thing as evolution unless you're talking about the evolution of turning men into gods. So if you are in a church or associated with a ministry of some kind that teaches this concept or uses this as a theme, evolution, run for your life. You are in danger in that church. And then you see their logo, don't you? The compass. It's the compass rose is what it is. And there it is. I mentioned this in the Secrets of the UN video, that on these compass roses, they almost always put that fleur-de-lis pointing toward the north. There's a secret up there. That is the secret to man's evolution. And I guess the logo here, evolution, I guess it would sort of give you the idea that they're on the eve of some big major revolution. And let me just comment on that for a second. Have you ever watched some of these guys like Creflo and Copeland and Jesse Duplantis and Rod Parsley and all these other wackos on there? They're always promising you that, man, we are just like on the verge of like the greatest, biggest thing in the whole world that's going to be poured out. And if you'll give us money right now, you'll be in on it. You'll be like in on the secret deal it's always some big thing that's just about ready to explode. And they've been telling this now for 40 years. They've been lying to people for 40 years, telling, man, God has told me that, man, we're just like leaning over the precipice, just fixing to fall out in this big harvest revival where everybody's going to be rich. And it hadn't happened yet. But if you want to get in on it, you have to send them money to get in on it. And that's what this evolution idea is all about. Somebody sent me this one. And they said, Pastor Mike, they said this was on a church. It was going to be one of these upstart churches. That it didn't start up. They started it, and it flopped, and now it's a used car lot. And it was called Elevate Church. The Elevate Church. And they said, what is that logo? Okay, what does that mean? Well, you have two C's, two letter C's. I guess they're supposed to be E's, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, two half circles, one gray, one blue. You always have something that sticks out. It's different. And yet they're fused together. And then the arrow, the arrow is generally it's a phallus symbol is what it is. It's like an obelisk. Okay, that's what it is. And even the concept itself, elevate, is related to evolution. You're going to elevate mankind to this. It's basically just like the doctrine of Freemasonry. You're way low down here, and you're going to take steps and go up. You're going to evolve in layers and in steps. You're going to climb the ladder. And they said this particular church just didn't work. And then somebody sent me this Hillsong. Oh, I love Hillsong music. Oh, I just love their praise and worship stuff. Oh, I just love that. I don't care for it. I mean, I think it's wild. I think it's awful. Once you learn the doctrines of the Hillsong Church in Australia, once you learn the wackiness that's behind that, you listen to the music and you're going, that don't sound right. But Hillsong, actually, I would say probably it's Hillsong that has been the forerunner of the transition in the churches from hymn worship to rock and roll worship in the church. And I would say Hillsong is mostly responsible for that. They weren't the first ones to do it, but they got big with it. They got really big with it. Their albums and CDs are all over the world, and everybody is following the Hillsong model. Let's do what you think about this. A greedy pastor. That's what I was. I was a greedy pastor. I wanted a large congregation so I could have a lot of money and I could have a big name amongst my peers. They would think highly of me. And so I know I know what's behind it. Okay? And so a greedy pastor gets in there and he wants to be hip. He wants to follow the trend. So he looks to Hillsong, and whatever Hillsong does, that's what he does. And whatever the Hillsong guy says, that's what he says. And whatever Rick Warren writes, that's what he writes. And whatever he preaches, that's what he's going to preach. He's just following the paradigm. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it's just like this church here that used to be a car, that now is a car lot. It went broke. It went bankrupt. You know why? They borrow. They get in there and they borrow all this money. You'll get some slick, a hot rod pastor that comes in and says, if we build it, they'll come. Because I watched the Field of Dreams and it worked. Field of Dreams is just loaded with New Age theology. But anyway, if we just go in debt now, $5 million, and build this big new super center that's an entertainment hall and a dance hall and keep everybody entertained, then we're going to have a big church and I'll have lots of money and people will like me. And I'll be writing books and going on a lecture circuit. That's what I want. And so they follow the Hillsong paradigm. And somebody sent me this, said it was advertised in I think an Assembly of God magazine in Australia or in New Zealand. Let me get rid of the top graphic here so you can see that. It's Hillsong equipping the leaders of the global church.